Okay, so here we have it. The patch and tweak book and the Korg NTS-2 scope kit with a special sticker included. So, let's see where it stands. Rock and roll. Alright, so let's get this box open and see what's in here. So inside the box we have these cool stickers. This white box, which I assume contains the scope and the kit. This very nice looking patch and tweak book. And a load of paperwork. Probably won't read that. Let's have a look inside this white box. Alright, so we have a TRS cable, USB-C, it's a USB, I think that's called USB-A cable. These stands, they're sort of clear plastic with a protective coating on the outside, two of them. What look like thin aluminium end plates. What's in here? It's some form of I/O board, probably the backboard, a load of jacks, USB-C, power button maybe, power connector, some headers. What else do we have? 4 of these, probably corner pieces. What's this? Oh! Little screwdriver, interesting. A load of little screws. That screwdriver looks a bit too tiny to be useful. Some rubber feet, and then white plastic ends of some sort. And then we have this, which looks like it needs to be snapped to the main screen. The back with a place for battery, and side panels by the look of it. A place with 2 batteries. Okay, so let's have a go at putting this together. So empty this out. Make sure we're not losing any of them. Still interested to see what this might be. Okay. I said I probably would look at the paperwork, but I found some instructions. Interesting. Okay, so looks like we start by breaking all the different parts. We've got E, whatever E is, we'll figure that out in a minute. Okay, so let's start by breaking that apart. E. No, different E. Lots of E's. Okay, let's try and figure this one out. Felt like I was going to break it then, but clearly didn't. Still trying to break this up, not cause any damage. Okay, and then finally this one. Looks like I might break it. Okay, gently rocking from side to side seemed to sort that out. Right, so these seem to be the main parts. So we have, this is the screen, that is the back. Just change the camera angle so I can sit down and find it a bit easier. Looks like there's just protective film on one side of these. And it looks like those bits slot into the side. Okay, so slot into the side, and then we have screws screwing it together somehow. Maybe these long thin things. Yeah, it's looking like these long thin things. Seems to go okay. This tiny little screwdriver is going to come in handy, I think. Seems a bit odd sticking out so far, but there we have it. Okay, so I've done that bit. I got it wrong at first, I got this the wrong way around, so I need to correct that. That feels reasonably solid. Next, it looks like we need to break off these tabs here so this will fit in correctly. So let's do that now. Okay, broke off fairly easily. That fits nicely in there. Right. Also, it looks like we need to put these rubber feet onto these circles here. Let's do that now. Okay, looking good so far. Yep, and final one. Okay, that's fairly easy. So that's that bit done. Okay, I think I'm gonna do another time lapse while I screw this together now. So there we have it. Seems pretty good. You couldn't drive a tank over it. It doesn't seem incredibly sturdy, but pretty good for the price point. I think it's nice. All the buttons feel good. The encoder feels solid. Feels easy enough to get to the various different things. I still do not know what this is for. I don't really see any gaps that it would fill. If you do know, let me know in the comments. And one other thing that wasn't obvious to me when I was building, this stand, adjustable stand, I'll probably use it like that, needs to be screwed in here. And it wasn't clear to me when I did it, so I need to take those screws out and then screw that onto the side. Let's do that now. So there we have it, the built unit. Actually, I quite like the look of those. those things at the side, they look pretty cool. Let's stick some batteries in and see if it actually works. Ooh, wrong type of batteries. I needed AAAs, not AA's. Will it turn on? It's pretty cool. So you get some options with the scope. I don't know if you can see that there. Different things. Yeah, so that's an output. Wave and scope, so you got scope, wave and output wave, FFT to show fast Fourier transform of the incoming frequencies, tuner, pretty cool, test that out in a minute, and then global options. One thing you may be interested in, I mentioned that I couldn't figure out where to put these things. There didn't seem to be any use for them. If you look at the manual here, it says that you basically use them as spacers if you're using the side bits. Honestly, I don't think you need them. I don't think they look good at all. I think it looks quite nice like that. So let's have a play around with the scope. I have an oscillator here, an Ericsson Playbox oscillator. It has a number of different waves. It has pulse, saw and triangle, so we can have a play around with different ones there. Let's see how the scope behaves. So we can see, if we click this button here, you can see that you have a choice between the scope, wave, we'll play with that later, that's wave output, FFT, let's have a play with that one in a bit as well, a tuner, interesting, and then some information, and I like this part, assembled by you. So let's have a look at the scope. So I'm using one of the 4 inputs. We use 4 inputs by essentially using a TRS cable, and I don't have one to hand, into here, and that would be output 1 and 2, and another TRS cable into here, that would be outputs 3 and 4. So we just got one output coming from the Polybox oscillator here. Now this particular oscillator, the triangle wave, has a little character, a little bit of character on the top. On my other scope, which I'll show you in a minute, it's shown a little bit more prominently, but this scope is definitely picking it up. So I think that's pretty cool. Now in terms of being able to tweak what we see here, if we press horizontal, we can show basically how much time will pass from each width. So at the moment it's 500 microseconds, at the moment it's 1 millisecond, so we can see we are about two and a half full cycles per millisecond there. On the vertical side, we can change that as well, so we can really tune in exactly what we want to see here, and that's pretty cool. Let's have a look at the different waveforms. So okay, yeah, it looks pretty good. Pretty responsive, actually. No complaints there. On the pulse side, let's adjust this. The pulse width is quite a lot stronger, so we can adjust that down. Yep. And then we can change the frequency here, and then the pulse width. So incredibly responsive, that's pretty cool. So as far as the scope goes, there are other videos online that can show you a lot more detail, but as far as it goes, it's pretty cool. But one other thing to mention is the trigger. I've had mixed results with the trigger. Most of the time it's set to auto, and that's pretty much how it's going to work all the time. You can do a rise, so it'll attempt to trigger on the rise, and we can see that there. You can also do a fall, and that will attempt to trigger on the fall. You can set the trigger threshold as well. I have not had much success with rise single or fall single, but essentially auto seems to be pretty cool all in. So let's test the tuner functionality. I have a signal generator, an 01 oscilloscope here. This signal generator can generate a sine wave and square wave and other different types of waveform. So I'm sending a 440 Hertz 5 volt peak to peak waveform at the moment, and we can see it's showing the waveform nicely and then showing that it's bang on A. If we change that to a square wave, again, pretty solid. And now we're using a ramp, again, pretty solid. We're now sending a pulse, a 10 millisecond pulse, again, no issues at all. And next we're sending a stair wave down. Again, pretty cool. Let's go back to the sine wave and then see how low and high we can go in frequency. So we are down to 30 Hertz. Seems to be okay. 20 Hertz. 10 Hertz. 9 Hertz. Okay, it seems to be able to go pretty low, maybe it's getting a bit confused. So let's go up to 1 kilohertz. No problem at all with that. 2, 3, go all the way up to the top of the audible range. So we're at 15 kilohertz now. 16, 17, 20 kilohertz. Seems to handle those pretty well actually. So continuing to use the signal generator here, and we're looking at the FFT function. So I'm sending a 440 Hertz sine wave at the moment, and if we select, we can change the vertical. Make it look a little bit clearer, but it's still a bit messy, isn't it, when it merges together. We can see a sine wave, pretty clean, no harmonics, just a fundamental. Change that to a square wave, now we can see the odd harmonics coming in. If we zoom in a little, we can see the frequency of those. That looks pretty clean, it's pretty easy to look at. Change that to a ramp wave, we can see more harmonics are coming in. So I'd say that's pretty good to use. I really don't like it when it sort of gets merged like that though, it makes it quite difficult to see. But in general we can use the FFT function, the fast Fourier transform, and we can see the wave as well. As we change through different waves, we can see that represented fairly well. Next, let's take a look at the wave output. So I'm using output 2 here, which is the left side. It is set to continuous, so I'll always send it out, and I'm sending a 1 kilohertz signal out. The volume is set to dBu rather than voltage, but can't be bothered doing the calculations at the moment, but let's stick with the sine wave. So, sine wave looks pretty clean on the scope here. Set it to square. Well, the start of the square wave is not incredibly clean, but not too bad. Triangle, looking pretty good. Saw rise, saw fall, yep. Alright, pretty clean. Let's look at others. So noise, okay, looks pretty noisy. We can send white or pink noise. Pink noise looks very digital, doesn't it? Whereas the white noise looks pretty analogy. Pink looks very digital. So we've got a pulse. We're going on a positive only pulse there. Just my scope is busy trying to calibrate. There we go. So a positive only. And we can change that to negative. Let my scope readjust. taking his time on that one for some reason. Yeah, my scope's not incredibly happy with that. That's pretty good. What else do we have? Envelopes. Yeah, envelopes looking pretty clean too. Okay, so yeah, the wave output looks pretty clean. So in summary, what do we think of this scope? Well, the price point is pretty good. I think it's about £140 or something like that. For what you get is good. There are lots of functions. So we have the opportunity to send output to use for calibration or play around with that. Using the wave function. The scope is pretty good. I like the fact that we can represent 4 waves, although it's not that straightforward to do because of a slight con here. We have 2 inputs, and the only way we can really send 4 things in is if we have a TRS adapter. I think it would have been better. Maybe they could be squeezed on if we had 4 inputs there, but no major complaints really. I think the jack connections are really good for synths. It's great just to be able to simply take a jack and connect it directly to this. So that's a bit on the pro side, but on the con side, I tend to use scopes for more than just synths in terms of playing with them. I tend to use scopes when I'm developing software and I want to see what it's doing, or building or troubleshooting modules. And to do that, I tend to use something like this. It's a probe. And using a probe like this, let me see if I can get that in focus. Using a probe like this, we can hook it onto things, which is pretty handy, and also connect to individual IC pins, so we can see particular outputs. Really handy, and these come with a BNC connection, as do most oscilloscopes actually. So it's both a pro and a con, I would imagine. If you bought one of these units and you just want to use it to connect to synths, then it's really convenient to just plug it straight into the jack. If you bought a scope to also use it for electronics, then it may be a bit tricky trying to get to a probe like that. But all in all, not too bad. Other cons, I mentioned the TRS adapter, needing to use that's a little bit tricky. The FFT scaling, the vertical scaling, it would have been great to be able to turn off the other wave. So if we go to FFT here, and we go to vertical scaling, I've got nothing going in there at the moment, but these get in the way of each other really easily. And I think it would be nice if it would be easier to adjust that and maybe turn the wave off in the background. But all in all, I think for the money, fantastic. Do like the, I thought it would be a gimmick, but actually I quite like the stand. It's really nice to be able to just position it like that. Slight con, if we want to change it, so say we wanted it to be this way around, we would need to undo those tiny screws, which is a bit of a con, a bit of faffing around, but doable. But all in all, I think it's fantastic. It's a great addition to a synth setup or a Eurorack setup. In terms of a bench oscilloscope, yes, you could do some things, but not quite everything. Mainly, the main omission there is the lack of the BNC connector and needing an adapter, but I suppose it's possible. But all in all, awesome. Nice job, Korg.